This is Pens Down. This is where we sit with journalists and we get them to drop their most important tool, which is the pen, and then tell us all that they go through. On this program, we turn the journalists, who are the reporters and presenters, into the newsmakers. So we get to know what happens behind the scenes, which are never reported. Today, I have been joined by a colleague all the way from Nigeria. She is a West Africa correspondent for German broadcaster DW-TV. She's a seasoned award-winning journalist who has practiced in and outside Nigeria, covering beats on illegal migration, sex trafficking, and criminal justice, besides producing documentaries on prisoners at maximum and medium correctional centers. Her crime and conflict reporting interests from the front lines stand her out among female journalists in Nigeria. She has covered most of the mass abduction by bandits in northern Nigeria, traversing crisis spots and volatile locations for first-hand accounts. She recently returned to Chibok to document first-hand experiences of the returned girls, as well as interact with parents still waiting for their daughters 8 years after they were abducted. She has covered humanitarian crisis stories, including the reality of internally displaced persons as a result of Boko Haram's insurgency in Nigeria. She's traveled to 28 out of the 36 states in Nigeria and hopes to touch base with the rest soon, pursuing and telling stories that are not told. She is a fellow of the prestigious Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism and an alumnus of the Thomson Reuters Foundation. She has degrees in both journalism and maritime administration and management. Joining me today from Nigeria is my colleague, Amaka Okoye. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right. My first question, looking at your profile, I'm a bit worried and curious at the same time. How are you securing your mental health in the midst of all these atrocities you are coming face to face with every day in the line of duty?
It's interesting, actually, to me that that's your first question. And I'm excited that we're talking about it. Every time I get the opportunity to talk about mental health and safety and protecting our mental space, I just really get happy because it's a conversation that we don't talk about. So it means that it's time to have this conversation. Maybe I have a conversation. So that's why it interests me that that's your first. How I deal with my mental space is an interesting question, actually, because in Nigeria, typically people don't talk about mental health. I don't think it's just Nigeria. I think there is always the stigma attached to, when you talk about mental health, people automatically think maybe you're insane, maybe there's something wrong with you. Accustomed to the reality that it's a good thing to do for yourself. It is important that you actually go for, assessment, psychological assessment, therapy, and counseling. And so for me, having covered conflict, and of course covering humanity, and stories that affect us in one way or the other, whether we know it or not, as journalists, we get vicariously traumatized by what we cover. And as you do know, trauma is very quite subtle. You think you're normal, you think you're okay, until one day you just have maybe a nervous breakdown or something just happens and you figure out, oops, I'm really not doing well. And so for me, what I do is I do a lot of therapy. So I have a therapist that I go to. I sign up for the session every time I feel like I have a need to talk, to unburden, to just talk about the things I've seen, the horror that I've seen on ground, the emotional burden that I'm carrying because of what I hear or where I go or the people I see, places I've been to, the things I've heard. So I have this therapy session that I go for. Beyond therapy, I also have counselors. I also go for counseling session. It will interest you. The first time I mentioned to a friend, we were supposed to meet for a drink or something, and I said, "Oh, sorry, I have a counseling session, in a couple of hours, so I can't make it." And he looked at me in this very weird manner and said, "You insane?" Like, so, there is a stigma attached to that. And I had to take time to explain, no, I'm really not insane, but I have a need, this need, to have counseling session where I talk about everything that is going on for me, where I'm able to, sometimes really angry. You cover some situation and you wonder, why is government not doing this? Why are people suffering? They don't have to go through this. And you're really, really angry. And you want the space to vent, to talk about it. Sometimes you even cover, okay, very recently there was the massacre in the church. And so I had gone to cover it. And as soon as I got into the church, the blood stains was still everywhere, still fresh. There was, charred body parts was still there. So I got in and immediately, it was so repulsive, the stench, And for a moment, I just thought, these people were alive 3 days ago, 4 days ago, alive and well, I'm talking, have plans for life, Here, we are standing here, literally beholding human blood, charred body parts, And I stepped out, I stepped out from the inside the church and I did a voice note for my friend, crying. I was crying, I was like, what the hell is going on? Why is this happening? And I needed to just let out before I could work. So I did the voice note. I do that very often because sometimes you don't really have the access to, you want to call someone. But you really want this to go out of your chest, to take it out so that you'll be able to work. Yeah. So I did a voice, and he always gets that sort of voice note. I did the voice note. I said to him, don't call me because I'm just about to get into work, but I needed to let out so I'll be able to do my work. So that's one of the things I do, beyond therapy and counseling. I also journal a lot. So I have this book that is always close to my bed. It's my journal. And I literally write everything that I see or that I had experienced. So for instance, when we had finished filing the report, we didn't sleep until 1 p.m. But before I went to bed, I had to write. So it's therapeutic personally for me to write, not just typing. This day and age, we've all become click idiots. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
But that bit of writing kind of lets the energy flow, the negative energy, the emotion, the pain, the trauma, the things you've seen, the horror, the graphic images that keep playing, because you have flashbacks, you sit down and you just recall, you just have that immediate flashback. So I write. And over the years, I got introduced to that sort of therapy when I lost my father. And when my father have the opportunity to come for his funeral because I was writing a book. And my folks just assumed and presumed that it was okay, presumed by permission, and went ahead without me coming to the funeral to see his final remains and have a closure. And that kind of affected me afterwards. Every time I went for a funeral and it's a man, whether I know the person or not, I would cry like, oh my goodness, but I was literally mourning my father. Every time I saw the image of another man in a coffin, it was my father that I was really crying for, not necessarily that person. Wow. So I think point in a training I was in Cameroon, and then we had a counselor, and then she was talking about, tell me about your parents. And then, everybody was talking. And when it got to me, I had a lot of things to talk about my mother. When it was time to talk about my father, I blanked out. I just blanked out. I just went blank and I couldn't speak. For close to 3 minutes, I wasn't able to say anything, And so after that, she recommended that I go for therapy. And it was during that therapy session that I got introduced to, the ability to write, to journal your. So all life has been very, very helpful. I mean, you don't want to read my journal. Nobody reads my journal because it's real, it is raw, it is everything as I say it. So that's like me letting everything that I've seen out and pouring it somewhere. It's very, very healthy for me. So I beyond going for therapy sessions, beyond seeing a counselor and my therapist, I do that. And personally speaking, I love yoga. It helps me to center and meditate. For those who exercising is actually good, where you can burn out the energy. But I personally am not one of those who do exercises. I rather go to hike, or I just have a time of meditation where I just disconnect from everything happening and just center, When I got back from a walk, I came back on a Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, I was indoors. Nobody knew I was around. Even my folks didn't even know because I came in at night, went straight up to my room, disconnected from everybody. They saw me on Friday morning. I think it was a Friday, one of my folks, my sibling called me and said, "Are you alive?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm already," because they knew I was, yes, I'm alive. I'm okay. I'm just getting back to, reality. So I just disconnect the news. I don't know what is happening in the world. I'm just all by myself, trying to breathe, trying to just let out. So those are the things, practically speaking. Every time I get opportunity to talk about my experience, I talk about it, because the more you talk about it, you let it out from your system, the healthier you become, the better for you. Because again, like I said, trauma is very, very subtle. You think you're doing okay, you think you're well, you think everything is fine. And there is that assumption that, oh, you should be strong. You should be strong to cover the story. You should do this. But again, you're a human being. I say I was speaking to a group of students 2 days ago, and I said, look, if they ever have access to my, the camera, the footages, the raw footages, the one every time I go out, you definitely will find a place where there definitely are clips where I break down. I'm crying. I just want to let out, Of course, you will not get to see that in the news, but it's therapeutic for me, And I worked with the post camera guy last year, when I was covering conflict intensely. He is an amazing human being, He understands what I say. I need to take it, just breathe, and then we launch into it and attack it. So I also just want to correct the impression. It's okay to be vulnerable. Yeah, it's okay to be vulnerable. And there's nothing wrong with that, so long as it doesn't stop you from doing your work. I mean, I can't come in front of the camera and just break down, and not do work. Sometimes it can be intense. There are situations where journalists have been totally overwhelmed by the horror they see and they freeze or they break down, So that's an extreme. That's when you get to that extreme point. So basically, that's what I do. I have good friends also that I can talk to. When I need a hug, I just want to hug you and cry. And so that's it. And session like this is good as well.
But your family, I am curious, haven't they at any point said, Amaka, this is enough? You are taking enough. You are having enough. Before you lose your sanity, drop your work and find something else to do that can make you sane. We are concerned. We are worried about you. How many times have they told you that?
I'm laughing because that conversation is a constant, For instance, I never tell my mom when I'm going to those places. She never knows. She gets to hear them or see them, or she never hears from me. So she only hears when maybe I'm back in town and I just call her and say, "Oh, how are you doing? I want to check up on you." And she's like, "I know you went to those places. I know." I'm just happy, I also have, it's crazy. The truth is, there is something about passion that is consuming, okay? And that's why we need to be careful, especially when you're into this thing, you become so passionate that you don't even realize the amount of danger that you're in. Sometimes when people say, "Oh, I'm going to Chibok," and somebody saying, "How? Why are you going to Chibok?" And I don't see the problem. Okay, but really there is a problem. It's
Yes.
the most, So I get that always, even from the office. A practical example is when I went to Chibok. Chibok doesn't have network in some places. They tell you that even our boss, our overall boss, was very, very anxious. Every time we move and we get to a place of network, I would have seen like tens of messages from him. Are you okay? Keep me posted. Let me know where you are. Are you guys okay? And I would just reply and say, we are fine. If from us, it's network issues. We are okay. If problem, we will let you know. The truth of the matter is that if we have any problem, nobody will get to know because there is no network until we get network.
Yes.
But I mean, I can't handle all of those anxiety coming from outside, whereas I'm also trying to stay calm and do the work, So I get that question all the time. I get that concern. I mean, when I went to Chibok and I was coming back, my sister, she was visiting at the time, and she told me, let me know when you're landing. I will personally be sure I'm coming to meet you. Your office don't need to come. I will come to the airport. And when we landed, the way she rushed out of the car and hugged me, it was like, thank you for coming back alive. That's what it felt like. It was like my goodness, you're going home. Let's just go home. I've made food. I bought you wine. I mean, I love wines a lot. I bought you red. I cooked fish for you, So, and I understood that, and I saw the love, and it's one of the things that get me going. People genuinely care about you. People want you to be alive, And so when I get those questions, I really know it's coming from a place of love, I'm taking a bit of pause. I've not done so much this year. But that does not mean that I'm still into it big time. We'll be fine. If you're called to do this thing, you will do it. Sometimes when my folks are panicking, I'll say, oh, but come on, guys. Clarissa Ward is in Ukraine. She's married with kids. I'm not married. I'm single. So it's easy for me to run and jump and go up and down. But Clarissa Ward has 2 children. One is not really here. And she was in Ukraine the other day and back. Nima Elbagir is everywhere traveling the world. Christina Mampo knew her as war journalist even before she started doing what she did. So I think if you're called to do this thing, you would just do it. I really don't know how I do it, to be very honest. I don't have a formula to it, to be very, very honest. I just get into it and I get it done, And when we come out, we're like, oh, God, we are safe. My camera guy and I, when we went to Chibok, we were making jokes. When we realized that everybody had a gun, only myself and him, and the woman, who we stayed, God. So we're making fun and said, man, if these people come for us, this is how we're going to lie down. You and I will start begging them and say, please, we don't have any. Until you come back safely. And that has been good, really.
Why did you choose journalism instead of any other profession? You could have been anything. You have even a background in maritime something. You could have gotten some job in a maritime organization or the Navy or something. Why journalism?
That's an interesting question also. It would interest you actually to know that I started up wanting to be a lawyer. I'm the last of my family, and Jesus, you can't beat me in an argument. Like, we will argue every day. So, and everybody was always saying to me in the house, you should just be a lawyer, because like you talk a lot, you can argue, and I always, if you tell me something, you have to give me an evidence. You have to prove to me that this thing is right. And I started growing up loving, the idea of being a lawyer, having the wig. People will call me my lord, go to the court. Our cases. Actually was fantasizing becoming a lawyer. And then I took there's the thing we call JAM, the Joint Administration Matriculation Board exam. And I think my first and second choices were law, civil law. But along the line, something else happened. And then I just shifted my idea. And I just thought, I started reflecting and processing. Do I really want to be a lawyer? Is this what I want to be? I really like telling stories. Do I want to be a storyteller? Because like when I see things on my own, I put it together and it just comes to me naturally. So even scripting, for instance, comes to me naturally.
Okay.
So I had to really process, tell myself, is this what you want to do? Or do you want to do it for the name? Or you're a lawyer, barrister? And then I came to the point of truth where I knew that, I really don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be a journalist. I want to be able to tell the story of people. I want to be able to travel around the world. I really love traveling. I want to be able to be where it's happening. Oh, they said something is happening, I'm on ground. I like to tell it, So that's the decision. That's how I made the decision. And then I got a scholarship from a group of religious sisters, the missionary sisters of the Holy Road in Nigeria, to go do communication in. So my background is actually radio production. I started out radio production, and then in Kenya before I came back home, did a bit of writing, and then launched into television. And I've been doing it. And then, if I come back again, I will still do this.
How long have you been here?
So I started unofficially 2013. Stuff here and there, not really working for anyone and still in college and doing that. But officially, I started when I got back in 2016.
Okay.
A bit of print time, and then wasn't exactly what I wanted. I didn't also feel like I wanted to do radio again. I wanted to just diversify and try something in television. So from 2016, 2017, my first job in Nigeria was actually 2018. Apart from the freelancing, my first official 2018 in Nigeria.
Does journalism pay?
Good question. I like that question because it's a question that has to be intentional. The response to that question has to be intentional as per every job. I personally, when I set out doing this thing, when I became convinced that this is what I want to do, I told myself, this job will have to pay me. I was not going to be living on, the envelope thing, the brown envelope thing. I don't know if it happens in Ghana.
It's all over the place.
So I personally told myself I will not be that journalist who will be living off envelopes. I'm not interested in it. So what I did was to be able to kind of prepare myself, learn the skills that make me marketable, and where I will be able to actually bargain what I want. It's not a question of, we're giving you this because I just want. No. So I can categorically tell you the journalist that I am today is paying me. I don't deny the fact that there are some people there are some journalists who this is not paying, who's not, the journalism is not paying them. But I think you have to prepare yourself to the point where, you don't have to struggle. Make no mistake, I had my days of struggle. Come on. Yeah. I started off, my salary was 50,000 naira. That's the first class in social communication. I paid 1,000 naira. I almost like a PA. People didn't even know I was a journalist because I started a startup. Because we paid 50,000 naira. What was that? That's nothing really. But after that, my salary moved up. The next salary that I got officially was six and a fraction more than that, and still moving to where I am now, working for an international organization where you definitely know that it's not the same with local media in terms of pay and remuneration. So, say for every that question you have to be intentional to set out to choose, is it going to pay you? I told myself, this must pay me. And in fact, it's just like when you have a certificate. I know that these days people don't talk about certificates, don't necessarily, do the job. I also said that I will not be one of those people who's got first class, but your first class, you have nothing to show for your first class. It's
That's
not
right.
paying you, So I think it's the answer to that question has to be deliberate based on the set out intention of each journalist. What do you want? What sort of journalist do you want? Who do you want to be? And so that's what it is. So for me, what I'm doing is paying me comfortably, and I'm happy. I mean, of course, everybody wants more, but yes, it's paying me. And I would say if you make that decision as well,
Right.
but you have to pay your before you get to that point.
Very important. You made mention of the brown envelope. In Ghana, we call it Soli. When I spoke with Sir Terence Animbom from Cameroon, he says it is called Gombo in Cameroon. And in Nigeria, you call it a brown envelope. Now, what is your take on this thing? What exactly is your impression of it?
So here is what I think, or here is what I know. Most jobs are challenged because where they work, they don't pay them. Media organizations need to do more in terms of payment of journalists. There are definitely journalists who go months without pay. These are people who've got families, who've got children, you've got school fees to pay. A child is sick, you need to go to the hospital. Your family member is sick, your mother is sick, you need to cater for needs. But you are in an organization where you are not being paid your salary. That will force them. I'm not justifying it because, to be honest, I said to myself, how much money is it? How much you can never, I don't know how much they get, but I tend to imagine that it's not anything substantial. Maybe it would buy you lunch for a couple of days, but maybe it would not do another thing that is capital intensive. Maybe it won't pay your school fees. Maybe it won't pay your child's school fees. Maybe it won't pay your mortgage,
Or even your rent.
For me, even your rent, So for me, the problem, the crux of it is media organizations need to start paying their people well. If you pay your journalists well, I don't think they'll be interested in that. Every time I've had interviews, I say, when I'm negotiating my pay, I say, look, I need you to pay me well because I need to focus on doing my work. I don't want to be wondering, oh my goodness, I sit down and I'm calculating my salary. If I do this, oh, if I want to go for a vacation, if I go to this vacation, it means the whole of the month I'll be drinking Gary. Gary is the cassava thing. So
it's very popular in Ghana here.
Yeah. So I don't want that. I don't want to live that haggard life because journalists work so hard. If you work so hard, you should be well paid for it. You shouldn't even be imagining, oh, I don't make the calculations. I don't have the time. I tell you, this is what I am asking for. And really, I am worth this. And it's not arrogance. I really don't overpackage myself or blow myself. Your work is going to speak for you. And people pay for quality. I can assure you. People pay. I know that from experience. I know that I have never had to argue about my salary anywhere. I really have never, apart from, of course, when I was given 50,000. That was just me starting. But moving forward, I've never had to, because these people who are also hiring headhunters, they are watching, they are seeing your work, they see what you do. Sometimes you don't even apply. They reach out to you. Anybody who's reaching out knows your worth already and will be paying for your work. So the problem is media organizations need to begin to pay journalists very well. Having said that, investors, people also need to come and invest in media. See it as an industry where you can invest in. And not mean that journalists will begin to do your bidding because you're investing. Investors need to see that that's an avenue, that's an opportunity. Because sometimes some media houses are doing the bidding of politicians because they pay them.
Yeah.
Come and cover someone is having a birthday party that has it's no news, but you go to cover it because, they're going to envelope. And people people want to scrambling to go and cover it. I never cover. The worst period of my life, anytime I'm doing journalism, is having to cover events. I don't like it. In fact, I question it because I wonder, is this relevant? If this is not relevant, I do the hard. In fact, my friends crack joke and say, "Oh, Amaka is too serious for this sort of news," and truly, I am. I'm too serious for that sort of thing. I think the problem from media organization, pay your staff. Well, if you can pay only three, pay three, hire three that are multitasking, that can shoot, can edit, can do everything, and pay them very well. They will be there. They will do the work. They won't be interested. In GW, for instance, it's even a rule. You don't collect anything from anybody. You don't do it. You do not. It's a rule. And what justifies you to do that? You're paid your salary. You don't have to. So that's my position. And I think that has messed up journalism a lot, because that has also, a lot of journalists have sacrificed the truth on the altar of brown envelopes.
Have you ever been offered anything, monetary or material, to compromise the facts of any reports you were doing?
So I make it clear from the beginning. If I'm reporting anything, I'm reporting it in the interest of the people. Of course, there are people who will call you after certain reports and say, "Oh, you need to tone this down. This is not exactly how." But you know the truth. You owe it to the people in conscience to do the truth. People have called me. I've had offers. Someone will say, "Oh, can you come to my office? Let's have a drink I hear you want to pursue this report." It happens a lot. I have been offered both monetary and materials. People can buy you a vacation. Everybody wants to go. I love vacation as well. I just said, "Free ticket for you. I'm just wondering if you'd like to go to Dubai, or some." I don't know. Would you want to go for? I have this voucher for you have a month or 2 months or 3 months of free spa treatment. All of those things. You know what they are saying. And because I can afford it, I would decline that offer graciously and let you know that I'm grateful you want to do this. I will pass, because I don't want anything to make me feel like, "Oh my God, I can't say this. This guy offered me." I don't want that. I want to be able to say no to you and lose your friendship, but I'm happy, and in conscience, I know that I've done the right thing. I've done the right thing. Some of them mouth watering, very, very, very good sort of offers. But again, do you want to have that offer for just a few couple of months or for a year or for the moment, and then you ruin your conscience and betray those who trust you, whom you are responsible to? And the truth of the matter is, people know the sort of journalists that they can bribe. They know.
That's true.
Very well know. People can say, "Oh, don't bother with that girl. She won't even pay attention to you." But you would have made that statement clear, even in your actions. So from the beginning, they know that if you want to do that, maybe that she may not be the best candidate. You may try another. So
I get you. But I'm wondering, amidst all these viciousness and wickedness that you come face to face with in the line of duty in respect of reporting conflict, banditry, and all, will there be any particular assignment or set of assignments that stand out as the most challenging?
There are a couple of assignments that stand out as the most challenging. There are a couple of them, actually. To be honest, none of them have come as a walk in the park.
That's right.
You're worried about your safety, you're worried about accessibility, you're worried about getting the right people. For me, maybe because I speak Hausa, and when I covered the North, it was a lot more easier for me to navigate. If I wasn't speaking the language, that would be a huge, huge barrier. You can't penetrate the people. You can't. If you don't have the language, You really can't penetrate the people because of the nature of the report. Those are the sort of people that you'll be meeting. You'll be meeting locals who really want to talk about what is going on, but if you don't have the language, you can't penetrate. You can't get in. But I think the most challenging, or a few that were challenging for me, was going into Chibok was quite challenging. Apart from the fact that there was, we encountered the terrorists. Okay, when we were about entering into Chibok. And so with Chibok, if it is 5 p.m., if you don't get in, you can't get out. So is that you're going, you're getting out? And then we had reached already, and we were just overlooking Chibok. And then when we were at this military checkpoint, we saw people come. Maybe it was a market day. We didn't understand. So this military guy asked us where we're coming from and where we're going to. We said we're going to Chibok. And he looked at us like, you must be out of your senses. He said, no, you can't go in. Yeah, that's why you see people running. And he was one of the military guy was already digging, they dig these sort of trenches. I don't know where they go in case of an attack. So he was digging that. So which tells us that it's going to happen. They were not guessing. It was happening. So we were left with the option of what do? We can't go back where we're coming from because it's already, and we have to go into Chibok, but Chibok already the terrorist attack. So what do we do? I looked at our fixer, they looked at me. So what are we going to do, guys? And we just said, well, let's go in. And we went in. But we couldn't. So we had to run into another town and stay for 2 hours while the operation was going on. And those hours were like the worst days of my life because we weren't sure they could finish in that town and we come to the town where we are. And it's not like we were in a place that cannot be shelled or cannot be bombed. We're just in a normal house, somebody's house.
You were like casualties in waiting.
Yes, nobody's got any protection or whatever, But we held on to their life, and we're just making jokes and saying, well, we better enjoy laughter now. If they kill us, let's know that we enjoy it. Just talking crap, away the tension, because your head is racing, your mind is racing. We couldn't eat. I mean, there was no food even. We couldn't. We're just sitting and waiting for terrorists to hit human beings so that we can continue our job. Horrible, But actually, somehow we made it into Chibok. We tried to sleep, but of course, you can imagine that we would not sleep. And then the next morning, I woke up, I was moving. I said, okay, I'm alive. I called my camera guy. Camera guy was alive. Okay, fixer was alive. Die, we're here, And so by the time we came out the next morning, there was really attack. That attack had claimed over 40 people, including women and children. We could have been in that. So I think that's one. Another one was when they kidnapped students in Zamfara, female. It was a government secondary school. We had covered it. They had brought them back, and they were going to reunite them. We didn't have any business actually to go into Jengi, but we thought, oh, no, we have to cover this. We have to see the reunion. We could get some parents to speak to us again. It was horrific what happened. And we went in, and somehow the whole thing descended into chaos. And before we could say Jack Robinson, bullets were flying, I could see somebody already in blood. I could see a young boy who was right in front of me was shot. His intestine was all out. And I was saying, dear Lord, maybe today is the day. Just maybe today is the day. Just maybe today is the day we're not making it out of this place alive. But again, by sheer mercy, again, I can't explain. I think it was sheer mercy because I was standing, my camera guy had to be in the car because he was wearing something like this, what you're wearing. Okay. And definitely every northerner will know that northerner, you can't be dressed like this. But I was wrapped in the Bab, and I could speak Hausa. So he was already in the car, and then I came out in front of the car and I was like, please, we are journalists. We came to tell your story. You have to let us go. If you kill us here, nobody will hear the story. I don't know how they allowed us. I do not know. Another colleague, they had brought out the knife already wanting to, stab her. They were dragging cameras with them. They broke windscreen. I really don't know how we got out of it, but we came out. We came out. That was another one where I thought, oh, maybe this was the end of it. But guess what? 2 weeks after, I went back to the same place because we needed to I needed to meet the parents of the boy who was shot. Government take responsibility. And I needed him to speak to us. So we went back there again, and it was stupid. Even when I was saying to the office that I think we need to go back. There's still. But again, you get to the point where people trust you, believe they kind of know what you're doing. And office provided all the resources we needed to be safe and for us to be sure that we know what we're doing. We didn't owe anybody anything to go back there. But again, when you think of the people that I saw, the images that I saw, and the government has not taken responsibility for this, I felt that there was a need for us to go back. And the office also felt like, yes, there is a need to tell our story. We went back there. It was crazy. I mean, in the actual sense, it's a stupid thing to do, but we had to do it. It's a very risky thing to do, but yeah, we went, and again we came out alive. Every time once we board the plane, we are like, yes, we are alive. We are alive. And then when we hit Abuja, we're like, yes, we are alive. We wait for the next time to go in. And then all of them, most of them challenging. I still can't get over sometimes when you go to those places and you watch people crying in agony, women crying, men crying, people crying their siblings. They don't know whether they will come back. People would call you at 2 a.m. and say, oh, journalist, do you know if my child will come back alive? Do you know, are they alive? Do you think they will still come back? You wish you have answers, but you don't also have answers. And, it's challenging. It's difficult to process that. Some of the times I just stay on the call and I just cry, I just, you just feel helpless. That situation of helplessness, you just really feel helpless. What can you do? But you just know that, well, you're doing what you can do. And that's by being in this most riskiest of places, most uncomfortable places, you've got to, I don't know how, but you just
This is interesting. Your reporting interest, what drives you? You see too much, but you are always in a hurry to go back. What drives you?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you're right. I'm usually in a hurry, really, to go. I can tell you this for a fact. It's a fact. I always have a tiny bag packed. Always. Always a tiny bag packed for movement. And I think what happens is when I hear that this has happened, the first thing my head interprets, my mind interprets is, oh, those are human beings again. Okay. What I see covering this sort of story is the fact that governments move on easily. Authorities move on easily.
Yeah.
We can just report 40 people have been killed. Figures, right? But for me, I want to put a human face to this. I want the world to understand that when we say 40 people, we mean 40 human beings.
Yeah,
we mean
not statistics.
Yes, I don't want to reduce it to statistics. We mean men, we mean women, we mean children. people have no business dying for apparent. I mean, it's not their fault. And I feel like if we keep quiet, if we don't tell the stories, the world will not know. When one of the kidnaps happened, and I got a call from Al Jazeera, I was happy. God, good. The international world needs to hear this, even if it's 5 minutes or 7 minutes appearance, but the world is aware of what is
going on.
Yeah. Kebbi happened, and I was in Kebbi, and I got a call from the White House. The White House correspondent saying, oh, we followed this, and we really want to talk about it. And I was happy. I'm like, the world is hearing, because that's the whole essence. The world needs to know. People need to know that we are saying 100 human beings have been blown up. 100 human beings have been kidnapped. 100 children who have future are now, in bandits' den. They are now with arm-yielding bandits who have no emotion whatever, who can just shoot them for no reason, who, because they don't bring the money, will kill you. And so it's that thing to give the crisis and conflict a human face. The world must not become used to it. We must not. That's really why I think, no, we should go tell the story. No, we should be there. Where we should be. And that's it. Because, sometimes I've got people asking me a lot of time, are you from the North? Is your mother from the North?
What is your interest in the North? Yes.
If you're obligated to do that story, no, you shouldn't. It's not business. Are you what I mean? But yeah, we just do it. I don't know. It just has to be done. Someone has to do it. And it's a privilege.
How many more years are you going to go before you drop your pen?
Good question. I don't even have an answer to that question.
Wow.
I know that I have plans in the coming months, maybe in the coming years, but it will not be very long. I intend to just go away to breathe. Maybe not so actively, but just breathe. I've got a life also. I've got a life. I also want to start my family as well. I want to start. I don't know how soon. I don't know when. I don't know how. But I'm thinking of that as well. But I don't think any of that is standing in my way. None of those, to be honest, are standing in my way. So I don't know how many more years. But yes, maybe the dynamics will be different in the coming years. I'm intentionally working towards that. Maybe I'll also slow down, still do it, but maybe in a different way now. But I can't say, oh, next week I'm done with this thing. I'm not sure. So yeah.
How has social media changed the face of journalism?
Very good question. I think social media has broken a lot of myths in terms of journalism and the practice of journalism. Social media is repackaging journalism. And so journalists also have to be aware of that. Time was when, if you don't see it on the newspaper, it's not true. Okay? If certain media did not say it, it's not true. But guess what? Nobody is waiting for newspaper. Twitter will tell you. You will see it on Twitter. You will see it on Facebook. You will see. I know it's a bit more, but you will have an idea of it even on LinkedIn. You will see it on people's WhatsApp status. You will see it on WhatsApp statuses. So that's the era where we are in. And journalism is not the same. There is journalism now going on TikTok, going on LinkedIn, is going on Twitter, is going on Facebook, is going on WhatsApp, is going on Messenger, everywhere. So journalists also need to move from the traditional media and the thought that, oh, I'm a journalist, I have all the information. I'm sorry, you don't have all the information. Your nephew probably has got that information even before you. Your niece may be walking around and then something happens. And she's the one who breaks the news to you as a journalist. And she say, hey, bro, have you seen this? I put it's on my Twitter, or it's trending on Twitter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So journalism in the hands of everybody. But again, the professionals still remains the professionals. And that's why we must stick to the ethics. And preach the ethics so that even when we are going online and we're practicing journalism differently, we still stick to the ethics, which is also being refined. The ethics of journalism is also being refined, and we are aware of all of that change, and we're working with that change because it's all going digital, it's all on your phone now, it's on online, it's all everywhere on the internet, and we have to adapt. The word is we need to adapt.
Right. Should journalists be licensed?
Should what?
Journalists be licensed.
How do you, I want you to explain. I have a rough idea, but I want you to explain what you mean.
Okay, so by licensing, we are looking at, for instance, like law. After completion of studies, you are given the permission to practice. And that permission can be revoked upon breach of certain codes of conduct or certain ethical breaches. That's what I mean when I say, should they be licensed?
This is my personal opinion.
Okay.
I think journalists should be properly trained to understand what they are doing. If they do that, they understand the codes, they understand how it applies in different contexts. Chances are that they will not go overboard. Chances are that they will not breach. And so there would not be any need for licensing them or to revoke their license in order to call them to order. I think the bulk of work should be done in the training, in capacity building, in empowering them, in training them in the context of this day and age, understanding the dynamics at play and knowing how to function in the reality that we are in. And so I think if we get that right, there'll be no need for licensing. I don't think journalists should be licensed, but I think we should have journalists who are properly trained. I'm very sorry to admit, we really do have some quack journalists. You know, some read some reports, I watch some reports and I say, no, this is not a journalist. You know, this can't be a trained journalist. And again, also, that's also a fallout from the whole of the social media and citizenry journalism that is going on. You know, if you're trained in this profession, you would be different from even the citizen journalists. Yes. And so those trained would not need that license because you've been empowered. You know what you're doing. You know the context. You know how it applies. And you will use it in that way, you know, to make sure that you are delivering as you should. You're doing what you should do. So I don't think journalists should be licensed, but journalists should get good training, capacity building, exposure, you know, try different tasks, network in different places, see what works here, what works there, how do you merge it, how do you improve? The word is daily, continual improvement and growth, learning, unlearning, you know, and doing what applies and in the context that it applies.
Is there any particular incident in the line of duty that has found its place in your golden memories?
Yeah, there are so many of it. One of it is a weird one. I had gone to the slum. I was covering one of the slums here in Nigeria, actually, and then it was COVID period, and because there are no were not functioning. This group of young people started what they call unusual schools, where they just go to a community and then form themselves in a compound, gather children, and start teaching them the actual thing they used to learn in school. They do it for like 3 days a week. They went to the community, and it was just pro bono. Nobody was paying them for anything. Wow. And when I had inspired, and I thought, oh, and it's a slum, and I thought, why not? So let's go. So we went there, and that day, while we were filming, there was this particular lad. He probably would be 4, very small boy. And he was moving with us, myself and the camera guy. He was everywhere we filmed. He came there. He showed up. He was there. He was to be in class. He showed up. We go to this person. He was there. A little boy with a cap. I still remember he had a trousers and a little shirt, and then this traditional cap. And he was moving with us, and he was so intrigued. He was looking at the camera guy, what he was doing. He was looking at me when I was doing my PTC. He was following us. I had to ask the parents for permission. Can I take his picture? And they agreed. And then when I kind of stooped down and I said, why are you following us? And he said, I want to carry camera like you.
That's a future journalist there.
And I don't know, but that struck something in me. Yeah, and I'm like, you want to do this thing we are doing? But I said, really, I wish that his dreams will come true. Maybe he will grow and discover, oh, this is what I want. Maybe that's the seed of his career path born already, And I thought that was a precious moment. And I always remember his voice, his tiny voice, and the way he said it, with that little conviction of a small man, that, and of course, when I go into these places, you tell stories and you see the impact. One of them particularly, again, is Chibok. When we went to Chibok and some of the girls escaped, there was this particular one, Mariam Alimi Yanga. She was kidnapped, but she escaped. When she escaped, she was already pregnant for one of the terrorists. So it meant that she came home out of a terrorist. And so there's a lot of stigma, people which she has to live with now. Was saying, oh, you have a child of terrorists and all of that. So when I went into Chibok, she happened to be one of those that was happy to speak to me. And it turned out that after, they were supposed to write their exams when that happened. So it meant that she never went back to school. She just continued life. And, I spoke with her, I had an interview, and I said, stay in touch. And she said, can I have your number? I said, why not? We exchanged contacts. And so after I covered Chibok, after a couple of months, I was just in the house one day, I got a call, and it was her. And I said, are you okay? She said, yes. I said, okay, let me call you back. Let me just call you back. So I called her back, and she said, I'm going back to the university. I started crying.
Amazing.
I know. I started crying. She said, after the interview with you, I realized that I still have a life ahead of me. And that I can be anything I want to be. I got so emotional, I couldn't talk. And, I'm still emotional. When I got over it, I asked her, so what do you want to study? She said, I'm going to do communications. I want to be a journalist. And I want to be able to tell our story. Because no one can tell our story like ourselves. And I said, God, I've accomplished everything now. I've accomplished it in life. Like, if it's just this, I have accomplished it. Because nobody, not me, not you, not any other journalist can tell their story better than them.
Yes.
And I think she is now in American University of Nigeria in Yola.
Oh, wow.
And she's doing absolutely well. And we are talking. And I am so happy about her life. She has also enrolled her son in school. And it's beautiful. For me, it's beautiful. Maybe it's not money, but it's beautiful because one girl has been empowered.
Yeah.
One life has changed for the better. She's
Mm.
going to change so many more lives in her community. And it's a privilege that I told her story, that I met her, you know, and we're in talks. We're always
That is
talking. She's
your
always
successor in waiting.
sorry?
That's your successor in waiting. Once she comes,
Right,
she's going to take over from you.
right.
Yes.
So that's, it stands out for me. It does stand out. I remember it with so much joy. So much joy.
Wow. Let me pull the brakes here. It's been exciting talking to you today. Amaka Okoye has been my guest today. She is a correspondent in West Africa for DW Television. And she has chosen to tell the stories from the doorposts of the enemy himself, the enemy within. It's a dangerous arena she operates in. But she says it is her passion. Family has complained, friends have complained, but she says, you pray for me and wish me well. I'll be back. That is what she loves to do best. And we also wish her well on PENSDOWN, that she goes, comes with a story, and we are all happy she's back safe and sound. This has been PENSDOWN. Journalism journeys. That is what we talk here. We'll be back next time with another edition. I'll have another colleague take the seats and will take us through his or her journalism journey. Thanks for staying with us. Bye.